that I'm making are designed for anyone that is actually looking to find their truth, find who they really are, and find who they truly were destined to be. And the people that have been through very hard stuff and traumatic stuff, and you want to be happier, you want to be happier with the woman or the man that you see in the mirror, this is the video for you. And if you have no intentions of bettering yourself or being honest with yourself, and by honest I mean brutally honest with yourself, and face the things that have traumatized you and hurt you and broken you throughout your life, and deal with that, and face it and heal it to become who you're meant to be, then if you're not that person, this video isn't for you. I suggest you stop watching. If this is on Instagram, stop scrolling, because this is for people that want to better themselves and want to become the best version of themselves, actually to become their authentic true self and find peace and happiness with who they are right now in this life. So let's get to that. Have you ever wanted to feel happier? Right? Did you ever think that when you get that job you'll be happy? Or when you find that husband or that wife? Or when you get that car? Or when you get that that job? Or whenever you get that $1 million, then you'll be happy? Have you gotten some of those things and you still feel empty? Right? You have it. You have a husband, you have a wife, you have money, you have cars, you have houses, you've achieved your goals, yet a part of you still feels empty. The reason why is because you are in the mindset of duality. And I'm going to be brutally honest. I do understand that as I'm speaking, you're gonna get triggered, right? You're gonna be like, who the heck are you to tell me who I am, what I should believe, or whatnot? And part of it, you're right. I don't know your individual, unique self. But just as all humans are the same, for instance, our faces are all located in the same place, they seem to have a certain symmetry about them. And that similarity is consistent for all human beings. So where I'm speaking from the perspective of what I found to be consistent across all grounds for human beings. And those are similar between me and you. That's where I'm coming from. And I would never know you as you were made, like singularized, or very unique as you were made uniquely. I would not know that for sure, but I am familiar with the similarities that we all have as a collective, right? And duality is one of those things that causes us to always feel like we're lacking something and we're always chasing after it. What duality simply means is division, right? When you're looking at things from a perspective of unity, that means that you have a single tunnel vision of something. But when you're looking at it from the perspective of duality, it simply means that you're looking at it from two different places. Now here's the thing, those two different places can be seen in every aspect of your life. For instance, when you're saying that when I have this, then I will be happy, then you're looking at it from two perspectives. You are looking at the you are looking at the you in your mind in the future, right? But you're also here in the present. So there's two aspects of you. So you're looking at it from a double perspective instead of looking at it as one. So you don't understand what it feels like to be that person. You can simply look at that person that you want to be from the present. And that is the concept of division, right? Because in truth, the person that will be experiencing those things, those goals, that marriage, that job, that check, whatever it is that you're pursuing, is the same person, is the same being. But you are looking at that person as though it wasn't you, as though because it's in the future, it's not you. So that's the whole concept of duality. Here's the crazy part. How I came to realize that I was looking at my life through this perspective is that, to start off, I had no idea that I was looking at myself in that perspective. And that's the tough part. The tough part is coming to admit that we see ourselves that way. Admitting that, you know what? Why do I always feel like there's two aspects of me? Like there's the me that's always watching everything that's going on and thinking in the present, but then there's the me that I also want to be like. But I never realized that those two people are exactly the same person. So I used to think that that's just how things are, because I didn't know that I was divided as such, right? And as long as you're divided within yourself, there's no way you're going to find the peace and the happiness. Because when you get to that point, you're going to be thinking about the next point. And when you get to that point, you're going to be thinking about the next point, right? So you get married and now it's about having kids, right? You have kids, now it's about having those kids graduate, or it's about raising those kids until they become successful people. And then after that is going to be the next milestone. So you never really reach that point that you're trying to go after. And that's only because that's how you wired. You already wired to live this way, to see life in that perspective, so that no matter how close you get, the further your goals will get. No matter how much you feel like the next step is going to be the one, when you get there, it's going to have to be the next one after that, right? And that's a cycle of suffering that I was experiencing a lot. And it wasn't until I started admitting to myself that the reason why I'm always chasing something in the future is because I didn't like who I was in the present. Why? Because I've been through a lot of stuff, and most of it from my previous past childhood experiences, most of that stuff caused trauma, and that trauma caused me to develop a personality to cope with those traumas. And that personality is an identity that I show to the world, but that's not really who I am, as a way to get the world to see my weaknesses and my wounds, and thinking that that will make me happy. And because that aspect of me, that personality that I'm showing isn't really me, I suffer so much that the only way that I can make sense of a better life or a happy life is to think that the John 5 years from now, who has the money, the cars, the wealth, the notoriety and all that stuff, that's the John that's going to give me the happiness that I'm seeking. But really, the true happiness itself comes from me realizing that I have to be okay, I have to face, I have to accept the things that I'm carrying right now. And that meant that I had to look at myself and really admit, like, John, you are broken, man. You're broken, you're hurt, you've been through a lot, and you've given a lot, and you still have a void. You still feel empty. I had to acknowledge that. But one of my traumas is also worthiness. So having to face that is so painful because it takes me back to the first events that caused that pain and suffering in the first place. And because the brain is such a powerful thing, and its job is to protect you. Its job is to protect you from pain, protect you from harm in order for you to survive. What your brain does is that it tricks you into not seeing the very thing that you are trying to gain awareness of by keeping you distracted. Keeping you distracted on social media, keeping you distracted by looking for other source of validation, other sources of things that make you feel good, like partying, anything that it is that will keep your mind off of the actual thing that you're trying to gain awareness of, the pain, the trauma, or the brokenness, right? And I literally had to force myself, right? Because you have to understand that over the years that you carry these wounds with you, you develop a very strong personality. And a personality is just a system, a pattern of thinking within your own brain that helps you cope with the pain of your traumas, right? And I developed a very strong personality. And for me to have to face that, it means I would have to really acknowledge that who I thought that I was is not really who I am. And that's a very hard thing to accept. That was a very hard thing for me to deal with, to take in, because I wouldn't know who I am, and you would feel lost and you would panic, and it's scary, and your mind is trying to keep you away from that. The brain is trying to keep you away from that because it associates that with suffering and pain, right? So I forced myself to bring that out of me by putting myself in positions where I would mess up and people would call me out on it, right? Or I surrounded myself with people that would call me out on my arrogance, call me out on my egotism, call me out on all these things, so that I would have to recognize it, humble myself, and accept it. And once I accepted it, I could see clearly right through. I could see that, oh, this is coming from a wound. It's coming from a wound of unworthiness. It's coming from something that happened that made me feel small. I trusted someone, and that trust was abused and taken advantage of. And I'm realizing, and things start to click, and I start to make connections and start to understand that, oh man, like the real me is this person that I'm discovering now. And the idea of me that I want to be is still me, yet it's a future version of me that I always focused on, that I always wanted to be, that I was always aware of. But the other side of it, the duality, the divided side of it, it was the me in the present with all the wounds and all the brokenness. Which is why no matter how much I chased that me that I wanted to be in the future, so long as the me in the present was not acknowledged, it was like carrying a bunch of weight with me. It's like carrying baggage, you know? You're running a race trying to get to the finish line, but you have all this baggage that's slowing you down, that's weighing you down because you're divided, right? Me coming to that realization, right? And starting to work on those wounds and starting to slowly but surely accept the things that have happened to me and understand that those things do not affect my value. They don't make me any less. I started to work on that and accepting and make peace with who I was in the present, and just like that the gap started to close slowly but surely. And then at some point I started to feel the way that I wanted to feel when I achieved those goals. All of a sudden I'm waking up in the morning and I'm happier with myself. I feel more comfortable in my own skin. I'm okay with my mistakes. I'm okay with my downfalls. I understand where they come from. I understand the root issues that have caused those things to be there. Therefore, I have compassion for myself. In certain moments when I mess up, when I slip up, or when I relapse, I would have more compassion for myself, and that made me ultimately happier, right? And we do look for this in different ways. In this idea of duality, we always never focus on us. We always focus on the outside. Always focus on the goal. Always focus on who we're gonna be in 3 years. Always focus on who we're gonna be when we get married. Always focus on who we're gonna be when we get saved. Always focus on the outside, and we never actually really take time to acknowledge the other side, right? Because when you do acknowledge that, it's almost like you become one. You no longer think of yourself in the future. You think of you just as in the present. When you think about feeling good, you no longer say I'm going to feel good, but you actually just feel good. Or you tell yourself I feel good. And everything that you're chasing becomes almost accomplished in the present, and you already feel it. And based on the law of attraction, whatever you focus your energy on grows. So if you feel the way you want to feel 5, 6, 7 years from now, if you already feel in the present what you want to feel when you get your job, or when you get that marriage, when you get the money, when you get the cars, if you feel that in the present already without having it, it comes to you. It manifests and it's given because you got it out of your own way. So duality is the reason why you always feel like you're pursuing something, why you always feel like no matter what it is that you accomplish, there is something missing. And this goes so far deep into different levels, all the way into your soul and your very being and the existence of everything, right? But it comes from being humble enough to admit that there is a division between you. There is the you that is in the present and the you that is going on in your mind in the future, always focused on the outside. But you have to bridge that gap. You have to bridge that gap, but you can't bridge a gap if you don't even know that it exists. So you have to humble yourself. And this is one thing that I will leave you with, and is to simply ask yourself, are you truly happy with who you are right now? Are you fully content with who you are right now? If not, if you think you're going to be happy tomorrow, in a week, in a month, in a year, when you get the job, whenever that is not in the present, then my friend, you are divided. Because part of you is still here in the present, but another part of you is in the future. And the future or the past doesn't exist. You will always experience everything in the present. If I say I'm going to meet you next week, Tuesday, and we're going to meet up, whenever we meet up, it's going to be today. It's not going to be next week. Because when we meet up next week of that day is going to be 7 days from then. And when we get to that day, it's still going to be today. So you're always going to experience life today. So when you think of who you're gonna become, you should feel that today. In feeling that today, it will bring it forth. It will make it happen tomorrow, by the grace of God, of course. This is for my Christian. Shout out to y'all. And yeah, duality is that thing that you have to gain awareness of. Because if you're not even aware that you are divided, there is no way that you're going to feel whole. And the only time you feel happy and you feel complete and you feel like nothing is missing is when you are whole, when you are complete. But if you're already divided in your mind, your heart is in the present and your mind is in the future, There is two aspects of you, and so long as there is that divide, so long as so long as there's a gap between you now and you in the future, you're not going to feel fulfilled. You're always gonna feel like something is missing, and even when you get to whatever goal it is, you're still gonna feel like you're chasing something else. And that can also be represented as the ego and the soul. And I'll go into more detail about that in the next videos. I have made a video about the ego and the soul, so make sure you check that out on my channel as well. And I will take it into depth so you can understand how this duality, how you seeing yourself in the future is who you think you should be, which is your ego, and who you are now in the present is who you are, which is your soul. I'll break that down in the next video, so thank you for watching. Again, my goal with this channel is to help you become the best version of yourself. I'm glad that you were here watching this video, and hopefully you have a great week, and I'll see you next week.